Welcome to our Expression podcast. I'm Neha and I'm very excited today to chat with Devesh Agarwal. With over 4 decades of experience, Devesh is a serial innovator, award winning technologist, and managing director at Jason's Technologies and Informat. An alumni of the University of Texas and the SKF College of Engineering, he's led projects that have reached all 7 continents, including Antarctica. But beyond his engineering expertise, Devesh is a passionate aviator, a Harley Davidson rider since the 80s, and more importantly for us, an expert in wines. He's authored a book, Wines Demystified, and like wine, Devesh just seems to get better with time. And that's exactly why you must catch this podcast because Devesh is just not a connoisseur of wine, but also a connoisseur of life. Let's see what he has to say. Hi, Devesh. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Neha. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So many of us grew up thinking that wine is for the elite. What is your take on that?
No, if you see, both are natural drinks.
Yeah.
Beer, in fact, was developed as a substitute to water
Yeah.
because many of the rivers in Europe were polluted, and
Yeah.
in those days, nobody knew, about pasteurization and
Yeah.
boiling. So
Yeah.
fermentation was considered the method of purification and preservation.
Right.
Wine also was, if you see, the Greeks were the first people, and being a seafaring nation, they couldn't carry the amounts of water that they needed, so they used to drink seawater, and their wine was designed to be diluted with seawater so that their sailors could drink seawater without, throwing up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in Roman times, you had what today would be essentially kind of a very mildly fermented grape juice, while the masses drank something called Posco, which was almost like a vinegar, not quite a vinegar, but similar.
Okay.
So it gave a little more sour thing,
Taste.
touch to the whole thing. But traditionally, both these have been natural products. They've been made locally, brewed or vinified locally. So if you see, wine culture is always, and beer culture traditionally has actually been very hyper local.
You also spoke about how the difference between wine and beer just now when we were talking
Yeah.
about how Indian or how style is European style. So would you like to throw some light on that?
So if you see, wine has been part of the, unlike popular misconception, alcohol was very much part of India's culture. In fact, we refer to, Lord Shiva, Somdev, Somras, that kind of thing. So, drinking and being merry kind of thing. So, intoxicants, for lack of a better word, especially wine and all, were very much part of the culture. The invaders who came about, thousand plus years ago, with them prohibiting alcohol, that culture of alcohol, of wine and beer in India kind of disappeared, and then it again was revived during British times and as the Europeans started coming in. And that's why you see today's Indians alcohol culture is more spirit oriented. It is not really wine oriented.
Yeah.
Now, Bangalore, on the other hand, because it had a very large German population, traditionally had a beer culture. We didn't just enjoy the usual Kingfisher, but if people of probably my age group would recall a beer made by UB, United Breweries, called Flying Horse, which was their signature beer. So Bangalore has always had a good beer culture.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it began with the United Breweries making fresh beer for the Bangalore Club. And I still remember on Sundays, we used to wait. So the Bangalore Club staff would go across to United Breweries down Lavelle Road, and because Bangalore Club was on the other side of Lavelle Road, and they would come back with, this plastic drum of beer. And from there, things started this thing. And then I think in the early 80s, the Sadhwanis, they opened up the pub at the beginning of Church Street, and from there the pub culture in Bangalore kind of took off.
Okay.
So, but beer, if you see, has always essentially been a replacement for water.
Okay.
Wine was something that you enjoyed with your food, with your meal. Typically, if you see, because European food tends to be dry.
Yeah.
So they need a liquid to wash it down with,
Yeah.
Which may not necessarily be the case in all Indian food.
Yes.
So that's why, I guess beer is drunk a little more than wine.
Yeah. So while wine is associated with Greco-Roman civilization, like you just mentioned, beer was integral to the Vikings, Egyptians, late Shang and Zhou dynasty of China.
Yeah.
And the Sumerians were the one who have invented beer.
Yeah.
So can we recreate the beer of these societies? Have there been attempts? Are you aware?
I'm not that familiar with beer, so I can't tell you that, but I
Okay.
will tell you that Bangalore has a thriving microbrewery scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think as of today, there may be as many as 85 microbreweries in
Wow.
Bangalore. And right now, as we are recording this podcast, Oktoberfest is going on. So
Okay.
most microbreweries will be serving what is called a fest beer, which is called Marzen. It's a kind of a lager,
Okay.
but it's little sweet, little caramelly, very, very tasty. And
Yeah.
typically these microbrewers, they make it only once a year.
Okay.
So if it's something that your viewers are going to do, I would say please definitely go.
So where should they go for this
Well,
October?
I would say I live in Kormangla, so I can relate primarily to Kormangla. But to me, some of the better microbreweries, Arbor Brewing Company, which is here close to Garuda Mall, then Mannheim and Biergarten in Whitefield. But Biergarten actually has got 4 locations. I think Manyata, Bellandur, Whitefield, and Kormangla. At Kormangla, they have this beer also called Great Sir, which is a kind of a smoky, lovely smoky beer. And they have a thing called Gose, which I call it as like a chart beer. You know, it's a sour beer. So I normally, what I do is when I get that beer, I'll ask for a little bit of kala namak from the kitchen and sprinkle it at top, and I get this, chaat chatpata
Yes,
kind of
yes.
pani puri kind almost kind of
Yes.
effect. So I said,
That
so
sounds
that's something good.
interesting.
That is so. Beer Library, both in Sarjapur Road as well as in Kormangla, is doing a fabulous job. The Bira Tap Room is like a kind of a gem in the rough. They have some very good beers right now. Of course, if one goes on towards the outer ring road, my vote would definitely go to Longboat. Karthik is doing a lovely job there. Windmills, and then down Sarjapur Road, I would, apart from Beer Library, I would say Aurum. They make some good beers. So these are some of the places that this thing. On the north side of Bangalore, I am very, very impressed by the recovery of Druid Garden. In between, they had good beers, then they had gone down, but they have recovered very well. And I think there's a microbrewery also called Peepai, which is right next to Astor Hospital. So
Wow, that's
yeah, it's a
a
good way for
wide.
somebody who's going to Astor to go drown their sorrows or something. No, jokes aside, some good stuff in Bangalore. And, all these brewmasters are kind of what I would use the word local. They're from India or many times from Karnataka itself. So they can relate a lot to the taste profiles that their guests are having,
Yeah.
which is why they produce some fabulous products, which is why you're seeing such a big resurgence in beers and
Yeah.
microbreweries in India.
But is there demand? People look forward to these trying these different kind of beers because I read an article where many breweries, bars, and supermarket once offered in America, especially where they offered a wide range of new beers, and now scaling it down to just chosen few because they felt that it's not
The
really
easiest way, Nehaji, I will turn around and tell you, do one thing. Try to make a booking at your favorite microbrewery for a Friday night.
okay.
Or even better, a Saturday night.
Yeah.
There's a good chance you won't get a seat between, say, 7 in the evening and 10. You might get a table at 10:30 plus at night.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yeah. And these are certain microbreweries which have seating capacity of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, and they are still sold out.
I'm clearly
So,
wrong.
no, Bangalore is a young city.
Yeah.
I still remember, on the Rocky and Mayur show, I don't remember who was saying, but they said, the difference between Delhi and Bangalore is that people in Delhi will say, this, but let's customize it. I'm going to add my own mircha, I'm going to add my mayo, I'm going to add my ketchup. And, so if it was a pizza, a typical Italian might be going, what are they doing? In Bangalore, will say, hey, this is how it's supposed to be. It's authentic. Let's try it.
Yeah.
So the younger population of Bangalore Bangalore has always been a city that has invited immigrants from across whole of South and then North also. So there's always been a culture of inquisitiveness, a willingness to try something, saying, this is authentic. This is supposed to taste. Let me give it a try.
Yeah.
They're willing to give it a try.
Yeah.
Not force an outside culture to sort of conform to their own this thing. That's always been the hallmark of
Yeah.
Bangalore.
No, so you don't find the youth these days are turning towards more towards the natural wines, like say orange wine, or more. You don't, because of
Mm,
health concerns.
no, no.
They're open, you say.
As I said, if anything, I find the youth consuming a lot more beer than they
Okay.
do wines, and
Okay.
that is something I wish Indian wineries realize, that they have to take a slightly different approach. In some ways, I feel I remember when I was in the US in the 80s, the wine companies brought out this concept of wine coolers. It's like sort of how Bacardi made the Bacardi Breezer kind of thing in a bottle. So they basically took wine and they have made a kind of a spritzed version of a sangria.
Yeah.
And not fruit, but had fruit juices and all in it. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of in a bottle, a mix of wine and fruit. And that's how they started getting people to first start drinking wine. Biggest fear that people have even today's wine, oh, I don't know what wine to order, I'm intimidated, this kind of things. So this became a way for youngsters to
Okay.
enjoy. It came in a bottle, you drank it, it was slightly sweet, slightly fizzy, so it's sort of like, as I said, a Bacardi Breezer
Yes.
kind of, except didn't have synthetic
Yes.
stuff in it. But uh, that's how they broke through. And as the youngsters started getting accustomed to the taste of wine, then their taste started evolving. And I said, okay, I'm going to try a white wine, I'm going to try a red wine. And then the apprehensions kind of
Come down.
they had already come down. They had broken through. That's why, if you see, from the 90s, there was a tremendous resurgence of wine consumption in the United States.
Yeah.
That was because of the steps done by the wine companies during that time. I still feel that's something that wine companies in India should explore.
So you've always been passionate about wines. You said in the 80s when you were in the
Yeah.
US. So when did you start? When did this start?
This was basically around 1985, 86.
Okay.
We had, curiously, there was a Goan connection to the whole thing.
Okay.
I was studying at University of Texas at Arlington. It was a very unusual degree. It was an MTech degree offered by the School of Business.
Okay.
They wanted to merge and they wanted to get out, people in business computing. So they said, I want people who can be programmers,
Yeah.
but they need to understand the business elements in order to appreciate, the problems and to frame solutions, kind of thing. So there was this Goan professor by the name of Mark Decuna. Oh man, he was the terror of the university. In any other class, if I would take one class, which is typically what's called a 3 credit hour class, 3 hours of classroom per week, we would spend anywhere between 12 to 15 hours outside class, doing the assignments, preparing, because the US system is not classroom instruction, but it's rather question and answer. You sort of do your reading ahead of time, kind of thing. In case of Mark, it was not 12 to 15 hours, it was closer to 50 to 60 hours. Yeah, we were warned ahead of time, and we averaged only about 4 hours of sleep a night during that semester. Uh, about 140 of us across 3 sections started his class. Only 20 of us took the final exam. The rest
Okay.
quit.
And you
There's
were
a
in the 20?
Yeah, I was one of the 10 who passed. I was one of the 3 who passed on the first attempt. I was the only guy who came out with an A grade.
That's brilliant.
I still remember being interviewed by this major computer company, and they were questioning me on COBOL programming and this and that. And then in the midway through the interview, I told them, listen, Mark Decuna, University of Texas, Arlington, advanced COBOL. I got an A on the first attempt. The interview stopped right there and then. It's, yes, you've got a job. Because if you could do this guy's thing on the first attempt with an A, then you know your stuff, kind of thing. But it was so we had study groups. So we used to do these assignments together. And there were about 5 or 6 assignments through the course of the 5-month semester. So at the end of the assignment, because these assignments used to be so tough, we used to kind of celebrate. So being students, we could only afford a bottle of Asti Spumanti, which was a kind of I wouldn't. It's not quite a prosecco, but it's an Italian sparkling wine which is sweet.
Okay.
So being, as I said, it went to very, okay, I like sweet. So,
Yeah.
kids are not going to have a kind of a sour Italian wine. So that's how we celebrated. And from there, as I said, that's what broke the boundaries. And we started, I started drinking more and more wine. So then I started exploring, okay, yeah, what is this wine, that wine. But even for a very long time, my knowledge was strictly limited to North America.
Okay. So I'm going to be a little philosophical just now.
Okay.
We spoke about so many choices and wide range of beer and wine. What about some of so some choice felt necessary, but too much choice felt problematic, right? Sometimes it does come across that too many choices are a problem. What about some of the choices we make in life? Don't you think children these days are given too many choices, or they're spoiled for choices? And how do you feel about it?
To be honest with you, I think today the biggest problem that I see, especially with first time parents, and it has in a way happened to me too, our children do not know the word no.
Hmm.
The other thing which I still feel is there, which I really wish, this is a big lesson I learned in the United States, is that you are responsible for the consequences of your decisions and actions.
Absolutely.
Even today, if you look at it, when something doesn't go proper, the population turns around and says, oh, the government should support me, or somebody else, or it's somebody else's fault. Like, the fault could be somebody else's, but what steps did you take? We keep hearing very sorrowful stories of people getting swindled by scamsters.
Yeah.
I say, boss, come on, you have to be a little smarter than that. Where is the sense of self-preservation? That kind of thing I still feel is, it's good to have more choices, because you see, when I was growing up, it was like engineer, doctor. And if I said I want to become a pilot, your father would turn around and say, taxi driver nahi banega. And I love flying. I have a passion for aviation. I have a pair of wings.
I read that.
But I never went into flying, commercially, or even did it extensively and from a hobby perspective. But today, children, forget engineering or medicine. Within the arts, the crafts, so many options are available to them. So many life choices are available to them. And it's good to have that, in
You
my
think so?
opinion. Oh, yes. The difference is that they need to be. See, this happened with my daughter. She started engineering, but she just could not, she didn't have the passion for it. So so she came back to me, I think in the first or second year. She said, Dad, I don't want to do engineering. I said, okay, what do you want to do? No, I want to do design. I said, damn good. I want to do product design. I said, even better. Now, what about the money that we have paid already for your engineering? So if you want to do this, you pay for it. Secretly, my wife and I, we kept depositing that exact equal amount of money that we would have spent on her education anywhere else. We put it into a bank account, kept separately, created a separate bank account, which she was unaware of. But for that period of time, I put on this 19-year-old girl, 20-year-old girl, that this is your life choice. You did this. You have to live by the consequences of your action. Guess what? She finished this. She did this thing. She did her product design in Singapore. She's now based in Chicago. She's living a lovely life. She's well placed in a major company. And she went at it because she said, yes, I have taken this decision. I am responsible. And she has that same mindset of feeling that, yes, I'm responsible for my actions.
Yes.
So, in a way, I would encourage parents today to do that. You have to teach children no, and then also teach them that this is the consequences of your
Yes.
actions. You have to do it. Now, you could do something like this, that you take this money and
Back
you keep
up.
it, you
Yeah.
keep it there for her, because after all, we are Indians. We are going to look after our children.
Yes.
That is very this thing. That is in our genes.
Yes.
It's in the the psyche, or
Yes.
whatever makes our society what it is. I mean, India as a society is very different. The United States is very individualistic. Come 18, son or daughter, you're out of the home. You go fend for yourself. India, hey, we're going to look after you till we can look after you, until finally you turn out and say, Mom and Dad, you don't look after us at all. And then also we continue to impose ourselves, But important lesson there was, she felt that while she was doing this, she felt that now I'm paying for it. I'm responsible for it. So I better work hard at it,
Yeah.
So Children can do a lot of things. Today, India, I have tremendous faith in the youth of India. They are the ones who are going to take this country into the first world of, the coming generation. They are the people who are going to take us to the top of the world. So if anything, I want to encourage them to, fly, so to speak.
Yeah.
But at the same time, be aware that there is consequences to every action, and you should plan for it and be ready for it.
Yes, I love that. Beer is just grains, and like you said, wine is grapes, right?
Yes.
So still you feel.
Oh, it's a huge difference. I can tell you.
What is the difference?
Well, you see, one of the most widely planted. Okay, let's take a grape that is easily available in India. That is a Sauvignon Blanc, white wine.
Okay.
I can take a Sauvignon Blanc from Sula, the Sula Source Sauvignon Blanc. I can take the Grover's Art Series Sauvignon Blanc. I can take a foreign Sauvignon Blanc, like say from New Zealand, from Australia, from America, from South Africa. And of course, I can bring in wines like from the Loire. Now, what am I going to? None of these wines are going to taste like each other. Heck, two wines from New Zealand will not taste the same.
Yeah.
The Source Sauvignon Blanc will be very different tasting than the Art Series from Grover's, which will be again very different than the Sauvignon Blanc that comes out of Charisma.
Yeah.
It's not just the issue of raw material, but it's the way the winemaker is taking his or her approach to making that wine. How long are they spending it in stainless steel tank? How long do they want to put it in an oak barrel? Do they want to use natural yeast? Do they want to use inoculated yeast? So there are, as I said, it's like, yeah, tell me, if I was to turn around and tell you butter chicken, I think there are each restaurant in Bangalore, forget India, is going to have a different butter chicken.
Flavor, right?
And you will like your butter chicken only at one or two or three restaurants.
I get that.
Even though somebody else will say, I hate these three, I'm going to those three.
So talking about what we spoke, there's this notion that wine can express the culture of the place it was produced in.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say to that?
Any food ingredient, wine, beer, food. Let's look at the food of India. We are today sitting in Bangalore. If I go from, say, Bangalore till the border in Maharashtra, I can come across probably 5 different food cultures.
Yeah.
I will have the food of Bangalore, I can have the food of Mysore, I can have the food of Davangere, I can have the food of Hubli, and I can have the food of Belgaum. So, food has actually always been hyper-local. Think local, eat local, source local, cook local. It's unfortunately a lot of the chains, the food chains and all that have brought in an element of standardization. See, I don't want to use the name of this particular chain, but it's a global chain, fast food. People go to this chain, the restaurant of these chains, not because they like the food there, or the food is tasty or something, but when they're traveling overseas or they're in an unknown area, I want sometimes to revert back to food that I know. It's not comfort food, but it is food that I know. So I still remember going to Taiwan once. This is long back in the somewhere in the 90s or something, and I was still in the upcoming days sort of thing. So I went, and the hotel didn't have a restaurant. So I go out in the street and I say, can I get some breakfast? Guess what's available for breakfast? A blooming pork chop, deep fried. Now, you're talking to a guy, okay, I'm a typical, eggs and toast kind of guy, or a dosa, or a idli, or, poha, or anything like that. The very first thing you're presented with is just a pork chop. No rice, no nothing, just a blooming fried pork chop. You're going like, for breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay, I may have it one day, but the next day I'm heading out to some place where I can get something else that, is a little more familiar kind of thing. So, food, wine, beer, anything is actually hyperlocal. Heck, you want to ignite a debate. You're from Chennai. We are sitting in Bangalore. You want to have a debate on dosa. Who makes the better dosa?
No.
Or who makes the better sambar? I'm very sure the comment section of your podcast will blow up. You've got to melt YouTube down.
Yes.
So, and this is a separation of not even 200 kilometers. We're not even talking 20,000 of the world here.
Absolutely. You made your point clear.
But I tell people, you must trace history through food.
Yeah.
I tell people, you look at The typical five ingredients we find in any Indian kitchen: tomato, onion, potato, chili, onion, garlic.
Yes.
None of these really have come from
Ginger
India.
garlic. Yeah.
Tomato and chili is from Mexico, potato is from Peru, onion is, they say it traces back, onion and garlic, kind of Eastern Iran, Western Pakistan. So, okay, almost Indian.
Indian.
How did these become so critically distinct? I tell people,
Essential.
you look at the vegetables we cook, they are all quote unquote English vegetables: carrot, beans, cauliflower, cabbage. Where did these come from? See the style of cooking toran, the stir fry.
Yeah.
If, it's so reminiscent of the stir fries of China. We have the Chinese fishing nets which came to Kochi. Isn't it possible that the Chinese brought the cooking style and the Indians living in Kochi adapted it to local ingredients with a touch of local spices?
Yeah,
So,
of
food
course.
that way, I tell people, trace history through food. You will be very impressed with what all happens. Like, look at similarities.
Yeah.
Apna kasuri methi versus oregano from Greece.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Say, I try to find, I mean, we look at jeera, cumin seeds, which is so common, but then jeera is the core spice that is used in Morocco. So how did that trace? You mentioned beer, starting from Egypt and Sumeria and moving around the world. Beer moved, wine, as you see, began. In fact, Iran has a town called Shiraz, which is a grape
Yeah.
varietal,
Yeah.
and it went through the Mediterranean up through southern France. Cheese making, the Europeans are so proud of their cheese, but the cheese making concept was brought to Europe through Spain, through the Moors. From there, if you see, cheese making is primarily in southern Europe. From there, it has moved up.
Yeah.
So,
Silk route.
no, the Silk Route, I would say more is your pastas and noodles. Marco Polo, it's the same way the kava in Kashmir, being so close to the Silk Route. If you see, the kava in Kashmir is the chai that is served
Yeah.
there is so different from the rest of India.
Yeah, it is. And
Exactly. So
the flavor is different only.
everything is this thing, the whole
Took me
approach.
back to that.
No, but I'm saying, I tell people, look at the world when you go, try the local food and try to see similarities, what you're
Yeah.
getting, look at ingredients, cooking
Yeah.
techniques, things like that. And the world actually is a much more homogeneous place than we actually think.
Yes. So you have a myriad of interests.
Yeah,
You can only assume that you're a very curious soul, right?
I am.
So what role does curiosity play in your life, especially when you're exploring new areas like wine, technology, beer, Harley Davidson?
uh, to me, life is curiosity. Without curiosity, how are you going to experience life? How are you going to try and find out the finer nuances of life? If you're not willing to look at why is something done this way? Why is it not done that way? In fact, in my office, the standing rule is if you're doing something for the same way for the last 5 years, it is time to relook at it and see is there a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
If you're not curious, you're never going to improve. Like, in industry, we have this concept called continuous improvement practice, CIP. It's a sort of hallmark of quality. And I said that is also in life. If you're not curious, how are you going to this thing? If you weren't curious, you wouldn't have found me.
Yes.
If I wasn't curious, I wouldn't have found so many myriad of items that I was interested in. So I always tell people, curiosity is life.
Yeah.
Was it that old Raj Kapoor song? He said, "Na chalna zindagi ki nishani, rukna maut ki nishani," kind of thing.
Yes.
So that's what essentially the day you stop being curious, you have stopped living.
That's beautiful. So what is the greatest thing about being a wine connoisseur?
You get to drink great wines. You get to meet some incredible people.
Yes, coming to that, I have.
You get to meet lovely people with, again, diverse interests.
Yes.
The focal point becomes wine, but each person is so different. In our friend circle, I've got a person who's, he owns one of the uh, biggest unicorns in India. I've got a friend who's a fabulous writer, James Beard award-winning author. I've got a friend who's an art dealer. I've got a friend who's a wine distributor. I've got friends who make aromatics, which are used in all our foods and spices and things like that. I've got friends who are computer geniuses. I've got friends who are running, great businesses. So
I can only imagine you're only growing every day when you have such friends.
yes, you do. It enriches your life, and
Exactly.
hopefully you enrich theirs.
Nice. So, you describe your experience with many of these intriguing personalities that you've met. Name some of them. I've
Yeah,
also.
I would like to avoid naming them.
Okay, sure, sure. We respect that. What are the wonderful benefits, unforgettable stories that you have to say?
So we talk about food pairing, and the gentleman I'm talking about, he's a proper vegetarian tambram.
Okay.
As I said, one of the unicorns of India, and he loves his wine.
Okay.
And he was, in fact, telling me that he was with this global consulting company, and when this Chinese computer company was acquiring one of the biggest names in personal computing, he was there. And the chairman of that Chinese company liked to drink, I think, Lafitte Rochelle. And he would dilute it with Coke. And to us wine lovers would go, "Ah, hey, but it's his money. You do what you want, yeah." So the advantage of that is that he would have a couple of drinks, and the rest, this gentleman said, the bottle would be left with him. So the chairman used to say, "You enjoy." So he says, "I got introduced to wine right at the very top level, and I got used to such good wine. Now it's a very difficult thing to drink, pedantic wine, for lack of a better word." So we were just generally joking like that. But one day he said, "Oh, Devesh, let's have dinner at my place, but I want to have, I'm vegetarian, but I want to have it with, these first growths, the Lafitte's and the Aubryon." So listen, don't do it that way. Take the second label, which is, from the same maker, but just one step and lower technically. But many years, the second label is, in fact, better tasting and rated higher than the first label itself.
Okay.
And guess what? We paired it with good old butter dosa, benne masal dosa.
Please talk to us about this more. I'm very
It's very
curious.
simple. The tannins in a Cabernet Sauvignon in the red wine will cut through the fat, which is in the form of the ghee and the butter. And so it comes out
So magic
beautifully.
happens.
Oh, it does. It comes out fabulously. I tell people, you should try. Sauvignon Blanc will pair so beautifully with lemon rice. Our simple yellow chitranna, what we call in Bangalore. I am sorry, I don't know what you would call it in Tamil or something else. But basically, nimbu ke chawal. The
Lemon
simplest,
rice.
simple lemon rice, the
Yes.
sourness of the lemon rice, a bit of sweetness of the
Yeah.
rice grain itself,
Yeah.
and will go so beautifully with the acidity of the Sauvignon Blanc,
Yeah.
as well as the tropical fruit elements. It's a lovely dish to have
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon, or any day in the afternoon, or even the
Yeah.
evening. You just want to chill out.
Because you
Something very
constantly
light and
hear
refreshing.
about wine and cheese. So, we obviously want to hear about different food experiences and different good wine experiences that
See,
you've come
wine and
across.
cheese, there is a reason.
Okay.
There's an old adage: you sell on cheese, you taste on like apple.
Okay.
Because cheese, being a creamy dish, will coat your tongue. The moment I coat my tongue, I am now not able to detect the minor imperfections in a wine. So, wine makers and wine sellers would like you to have copious amounts of cheese so that the wine sort of just tastes nice and
Yeah.
creamy in your
Yes.
mouth.
Yes.
If you have it with something tart, like something as simple as a green apple, or just take a plain piece of bread and water,
Okay.
which cleanses your palate, you'll be able to distinguish the very finer nuances of that wine. I always tell people, just take time. Don't try to drink wine as, like I say, a whiskey soda or something, a bit gulp. Take time, swirl it, roll it, swallow it, and then take time to savor it. The biggest thing with wine is the flavors, and ultimately, flavors are just a function of memory. Which is why I tell people, don't go with other people's tasting notes. Because so many of the wine experts are from the West. Now they'll say, "Oh, this has the lovely aroma of acacia flowers." And I'm going, how many of us have smelt an acacia flower?
Absolutely.
It's like me trying to tell a typical American, "Oh, it's got traces of guava." A typical American is going, "What the heck is a guava?" So if you see a lot of times now, wine descriptions are trying to take neutral terms, tropical fruits.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the tropical fruit to an Indian means something completely different.
Yes.
To a European, it means something completely different. To an African, it means something different. And to an American, it
Agreed.
means something completely different.
Yes.
So I always tell people, discover wine at your own pace, try wine, don't get frightened of it. If you, a lot of people feel intimidated.
Yeah.
So they don't want to try it. I say, यार invest in the bottle, यार 2,000 रुपए bottle है, 1,000 रुपए का bottle, it's $1,000. Taste it. If you're at a friend's place, you like a particular wine, write the name of that. Go try it. Then in the peace of your own home, taste it. What is it you like about it? Try to delve deeper. And I always tell people, make notes. Because as you start making notes, you become accustomed to doing the wine tasting, analysis, and appreciation in a kind of a structured manner, which is your own structure. You don't have to follow somebody else's structure. We always say, okay, you see the wine, you know the 5 S's of see, swirl, smell, sip, savor. Go through those 5 steps. But those are your steps. You will assign your own weightage to how the wine looks, how the wine smells, how the wine tastes, how does it finish in your mouth, how does it linger. So, slowly, that is the way I feel people should get into wine.
Okay, so but we tend to think of wine intellectually, like method, like it's a proper method. Like you said, this is how you taste a wine. This is how you serve it correctly. All of this, does it actually say how a wine makes you feel?
How do you describe when you eat your favorite comfort food? Or you eat dish of some 3-star Michelin chef? Or you eat some great food from by the roadside? See, these are all expressions of joy in various shapes. It's you indulging in yourself, giving yourself the time to enjoy life,
Yeah.
what life has to offer. Wine is just again an element of that. So you get to appreciate that what nature has created, what a winemaker has put effort into harvesting and putting into a bottle. It's the same where somebody is drinking, a non-alcoholic drink, whether they're drinking a wine, a beer, a spirit, anything. It's to each their own. For me, as I said, wine is when I merge it with food, it's a completely different sensation.
Absolutely.
So, just yesterday, for instance, I was having a a Chardonnay made by Tony Bish out of New Zealand. The wine was called Skeetfield. And believe it or not, it is in New Zealand, but the clone variety of the Chardonnay is come from Mendoza in Argentina via Australia, made in a vineyard, a single vineyard called Skeetfield. Incidentally, in the year 2022, the vineyard was completely flooded. There was no crop. All the crop was destroyed. This was a 2021. Sorry, 2023. There was the crop was destroyed. I think in 2021. So it's completely what's called dry farmed. They don't irrigate the land. So the plant has to naturally dig deeper into the soil to find water. And the more effort the plant does, the more flavorful the grapes become. And again, using natural yeast.
Okay.
And he's used oak treatment, but he has not killed it with oak. He has used a very subtle oak, a French oak. So the wine was just simply sublime. And so you're very happy. You're sitting with friends. We were sitting with a group of friends from Bangalore, from Chennai, and we were generally talking about all the possible junk in the world while sipping this wine. So we talked about the wine and we also talked about what's going on in our lives. So it was just a pleasant evening.
Yeah.
Did the wine help? Of course it does. it loosens your tongue. It makes your wine wander. Your mind wander. Things like that. So that's fine. I mean, to each their own. But the thing is that you're getting a chance to explore.
Yeah.
And you're getting a chance to bond. You get so many things going with one thing.
So when you talk about wine crops, just just now that you mentioned. So, wine grapes are fundamentally different from other crops.
Yes.
You want to give water, fertilizer to other crops, but the vines are often planted, like you said, in places where they can barely survive and have to fight for nutrients.
Yes.
So, does that struggle bring out character in the wine? And how do you compare this to human life and struggles?
There's that old adage, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger.
Yes.
It's the same thing that applies to life. It's the
Yes.
same thing that applies to wine.
Yeah.
In fact, that is one thing I would urge. I say government of India, the one thing
Yes.
is that so many state governments are missing opportunities. They treat wine on par with any other alcoholic beverage. When this is actually a healthier drink, it's what we call low impact. Beer and wine, they're local products. You are going to use grape, which is going to grow in areas that are otherwise inhospitable to other kinds of farming.
Yeah.
So you're utilizing areas of land, you're giving benefits to farmers who would not otherwise be able to grow or utilize a particular piece of land. And why are you now crushing that industry with ridiculous taxes and duties? Uh, Use that. Let it become today. What wine we'll end up paying 1,200, 1,500 rupees for a bottle is in reality can easily, if the taxes and duties and all are set right, would be less than half the price. So why not encourage? Make, uh, see, a bottle of wine today is 2,000 rupees. I get 5 drinks out of it. I can get 10 beers out of it at the same price. Why would a youngster go to a wine when they can have a beer? And in case of beer, I pick up one bottle at a time. So this is a way to get youngsters weaned away from hard spirits towards these lower impact drinks.
Yeah.
I mean, so, that's all. I mean, how many cases we are seeing of youngsters getting drunk and, the Pune
Right.
accident,
Yeah.
things like that, because they are drinking high impact spirits.
Yeah.
I think the government has to take a look at that. I'm serious. So that is something I really wish they do.
Have you watched the farmers' intimate relationship with the land they tend in vineyards? Can you throw some light on this?
I'll be honest with you, I've not done that many vineyard
Okay.
visits, but there is always a very close relationship with the farmer and the winemaker. The
Why do you say
winemaker,
that?
because the winemaker decides how the grapes are grown. What kind of trimming am I doing? How much of the fruit I'm removing? How many of the leaves I'm removing? How much water am I giving or am I giving no water? What is happening? When do I choose to harvest? Because the fruit is ripening. Now, there have been cases where all of a sudden, what would be, say, my traditional last few weeks of ripening, suddenly a whole rain shower has come, storms have come, a lot of rain has come. I have now to extend the picking little further to allow the grapes to ripen some more. At the same time, I may run the risk because it rained and the grapes are there now. If water gets trapped between the bunches, the grapes will start rotting. So there is a lot of
Permutations
this
and
thing. Yeah,
combinations.
you can say in a way, if I was to compare to a factory, the farmer is like the worker tending his machine. He knows his machine intimately. He knows how to operate that machine. But the winemaker is kind of the supervisor.
Yeah.
He is able to look at the big picture. He is the creator of the wine ultimately,
Yeah.
or she. I'm sorry, I'm using the word he
Yeah.
in a very neutral manner. The winemaker creates the wine. So they have in their mind some idea of what they want to achieve and how they intend to achieve it. So they are able to many times they may be sourcing grapes from multiple vineyards. So what is the medley this each
Mix.
vineyard and each grape from each vineyard will do? Whether I press it is individual grapes, do I press it in a whole cluster? Whether I use only free run juice. There are so many varieties to
Yes.
actually taking the grape itself. So the grape production itself is a big part. That's what people call terroir, so to speak.
Okay.
The natural element. And then comes what's called the vinification of how that grapefruit is converted into juice and then converted into wine and put into a bottle.
Okay.
So there's a big medley.
Yeah. And we hear about climate change, global warming. Taking away any one link in this complicated change can have devastated consequences to the soil, to the air, or even to the flavor of the wine in your glass. How do you feel about this?
You know, if you see, since 2005, when they first declared 2005 the vintage of the century in Bordeaux, if you see, previously Bordeaux wines were accused of being, very austere, no flavor, this, that, and Californian wines like Robert Parker, full of fruit and, big, bold, luscious, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? Global warming, Bordeaux wines have become big, bold, luscious. So, I guess. See, there is always a good side and a bad side to anything happening. I tell people, you take a knife, it will cut your vegetables, it will also cut your hand.
Yes.
So, and I tell people, so there are positives and negatives, and the secret is that take the best what you can get. In Texas, where I spent over 20 years, the wine growing is done in the what's called in the northern, in the panhandle of the state, and lot of rains. They lose their crops with amazing regularity. Tornado Alley, if you see, is starting from that portion of Texas. So a lot of times storms just go and rip apart the vineyards. They lose the wine. So those are the hazards of life as things happen. We deal with it. We carry on. We move on. What else I can say?
So many people have argued that lots of great wines have been made from chemically farmed grapes. Is that true?
I would say majority of the winemakers now are going either biodynamic or green, and it's a matter of pride. Some do use pesticides, but I will be honest with you, the better known winemakers, the people who have reputations, they will be as close to nature as possible. I still remember meeting this very amazing English gentleman. He had sort of retired, and he says, "I want to make wines." So he went and bought this vineyard, and it was in the southern France region of Mourvèdre. And as you know, France is kind of having a lot of rules regarding grapes. And he says, to hell with the rules. He actually got, I think, a soil engineer, for lack of a better word, who actually examined the soil. They dug up everything and they replenished the soil, the nutrients in the soil, the natural bacteria in the soil for almost, I think, 5 years before they decided to plant again. So they said, before I plant grapes, I'm going to now first, sort of reinvigorate the soil itself. So I'm going to start right at the very, very base.
Roots.
Yes, exactly. Technically, the roots, or actually, it's below the roots. And he made some very good wines. Mourvèdre is not known for fabulous wine. It's typically, if you see the southern France varietal blend, what they call GSM, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre. So Mourvèdre is not a very high end wine, but he produced some very, very good tasting stuff. And he's an English guy who moved to France. Passion of life. So like that, I was just telling you about Tony Beige. Totally dry farmed. Natural yeast, very little chemical treatment or anything. I don't think he uses any chemical treatment. So most of the better winemakers are not. Now, you also have those winemakers who are producing those 50-cent, $1 wines, which are just made in bulk. They use other vinification techniques to do what they need to do.
I'm curious about this grapes and French laws that you said. Would you like to share a few things about?
See, there are, I wouldn't know specifically each, but each appellation, as it called, and as you know, the Europeans are very particular about this geographical indications and all that. So, like for instance, in Italy, they have this thing called PDO, which is in food, So, if you see Parmigiano Reggiano, there'll be like a yellow symbol. It's a yellow colored circle, and it says something, protecta domination origina, something like that. Basically, it's kind of certified from this area. So that means that the milk for the cheese has to have been collected only from that area. The cheese would have had to be made only in that area using a certain set techniques which have come down from Baba Adam ka zamana kind of thing, the old days techniques. And it must have been matured in that area. So that is your Parmigiano Reggiano, which comes from the Emilia Romagna region, near Parma. The same thing applies to Parma ham. So if I say Parmesan's cheese, it's not really Parmigiano Reggiano. It could be a cheese in that style. The milk may not be from that area. It may not have been made in that area, etc., etc. So there are a lot of laws. So like how we use the word basmati in India, if you see there's certain now, India is applying for a lot of geographical these things, that Darjeeling tea. My tea has to have come only from that particular area, or my basmati must be that particular breed, must have grown in this particular area, blah, blah, blah. So that's what it is.
Does time play an essential ingredient in both wines and beer? And what about in life?
I'm not known to be the most patient person, but when it comes to wine, yes, I believe in buying wine. My friends accuse me of being a hoarder. They say, you buy the wine and then you just keep it in your fridge. And I said, yes. Like I mentioned, one of my favorite wineries is this called Chateau Montelena. Chateau Montelena was one of the winners of the Judgment of Paris, 1976, along with Stag's Leap. So 1991 was the year I got married. So I went and picked up a couple of cases of 91 Montelena Estate. I still have the last 6 bottles. We've been, each year, my wife and I, on our anniversary, we will open one bottle. And we'll see how the wine is progressing, kind of thing, So
how has the experience been about the progression?
See, wine
every year it's different.
Yes, it kind of it evolves. It's like any human being. You take say, let's take a Bollywood actor or actress, in their 20s, young, exuberant, sexy, blah blah blah, and then as they start moving towards their 40s, you start seeing elements of maturity, a little bit of sophistication, and then as you move towards the 60s, ladies are being described as being elegant and men are being described as, being stylish and things like that. So that's how a wine also essentially...
So when it's young, wine is sexy?
I would say exuberant. Okay. Now, see, it again depends on the style of the wine. Now, everybody talks about the Bordeaux first growths. Now, Bordeaux first growths are designed not to be drunk for at least 20 to 30 years after they are bottled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Oh, yes. If you take the tasting notes of any typical Bordeaux wine, you'll say, okay, at 2005, they'll say, don't drink before 2025, or the typical drinking window will be 2025 till 2060. So, in fact, I've got some first growths that I've told my son, okay, if I'm still alive at that time, we'll open it. Otherwise, you enjoy it and remember me.
So it is said in life, perception matters. Do you agree?
Yes. We all judge, unfortunately or fortunately, we judge everything by
perception,
our own prisms.
Yeah, and sometimes it's how it lives in your memory, right? Some things. So is there anything about any wine experience that has stayed with you, impacted you, and helped you grow as a person?
Well, as I said, I have this small wine group called the Wine Connoisseurs. We began this quite a while back, and it was essentially a group of friends who had wine cellars. We had wine collections, but we did not have anybody to really drink it with. A good bottle of wine is never drunk alone. You always share it with friends. The important thing is you share it with friends who can appreciate it. Otherwise you get into that situation where they say pearls before swine kind of thing. So we formed this group of friends, and even today we are a very small, close-knit group, about 18 people or so. So we get together on regular basis, and we keep trying something or the other new. Our group did the first time in Bangalore, we did all the 5 first growths of Bordeaux, coupled with Chateau Yquem and a vintage Krug champagne. Paired it with Indian food.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but each bottle typically about $1,000. So it was an extravagant dinner, but I got a chance to taste all five of the first growth in one shot together for the first time in my life. Even though I had been experiencing wine for close to 25, 30 years, to taste all five of them together, put them side by side, and then understand why the world is willing to pay such high prices for these five wines and how these five wines compare to each other. What are the nuances which are different, even though they are very, very close to each other geographically? They are different in their own way.
Mhm.
And that's when you really appreciate the really good wines. And yes, I admit they're expensive, but those are those few one in a lifetime kind of experiences. It's similarly Richard Patterson, who's a master blender of Scotch whiskey. He gave me a shot of a 62-year-old whiskey.
Okay.
And I tell
And how
people,
was
they
it?
said, how was the experience? I said, listen, imagine that you're used to drinking, just sugar water. And all of a sudden you're given this cup of royal jelly in terms of intensity of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It was like literally drinking a syrup whiskey. It was so dense and so concentrated in flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing. I mean, it was a I remember I didn't brush my teeth for 3 days. I didn't want the flavor to leave my mouth. Thank God it was the weekend.
So, is there any particular wine that connotes any reminiscent of particular people or somewhat represents relief from stress?
I, if I'm given a choice, I will curl up with probably a good white wine
Mm,
is my go-to wine.
okay.
Uh,
Comfort wine?
I would say that it's kind of,
Okay.
see, it depends in the kind of mood that I am.
Yeah.
If I am sort of, stressed by being overexcited about something, I want a wine that sort of brings
Calms you
me
down.
down.
Mm-hmm.
So I may want a red wine which is kind of soft, gentle, which kind of brings you down.
And you feel that.
Yeah, and otherwise, if you're feeling low,
Yeah.
I would like a white wine that is airy, little bit. It's simple, doesn't require me to put too much thought to it,
Yeah.
but at the same time, is light, it's airy, as you said, a bit
Yeah.
of exuberance to
Yeah.
it. So it kind of lifts your mood. So I ask people, yeah, I would see, it doesn't matter whether it's wine, it will equally apply to food.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a Punjabi, what does dahi ki kadi mean? For a Gauda from Canada, what does basaru reply this thing? I'm sorry, what would be comfort food for you? May I ask?
Idli dosa.
Idli dosa.
Yeah.
Where would you like idli dosa? When would you prefer an idli? When would you prefer a dosa?
Idli in the morning, dosa in the night.
Okay, but if you're stressed, what would you like to eat?
Dosa.
Why? That's the thing.
Yeah.
So each person, maybe your parents or something will say, no, I would like an idli at night because it's again light. I don't want to overload myself.
Yes.
So it's all. It's. I encourage people be individualistic.
Yeah.
Don't. I love to break societal norms. Yeah, I am known to be a maverick. So I love breaking societal norms. I said, if you want to do it this way, why?
Question.
Me, there was this, I still remember, you talk about a hilarious wine humor.
Okay.
Mad Magazine, if you remember.
Yeah.
The comics, yeah. So two African guys are talking to each other, and one says, oh, with my white meat, I like a very delicate but mineral chablis. Whereas, with dark meat, I prefer something a bit more robust, maybe, a nice Bordeaux. And the next picture pans out, in the comic, and they're, cannibals, and there's a black guy and a white guy and a pot of water. And the other guy asks him, but what happens if you mix the two together? So, I said, I love breaking societal
Yeah.
norms.
Yeah.
How many people would turn around and tell you, have a first growth with a butter dosa? But we have done it at this gentleman's house, and we did it in the middle of 10 other members of the wine connoisseurs group, and all of us really enjoyed it. It came out fabulous. So it's that is what that curiosity,
Yeah,
curiosity is being willing to break societal norms
yeah,
and explore it.
yeah.
Check it out.
Any particular bottle during those nervous times? Name of a bottle.
You know, to me, I mentioned three Sauvignon Blancs.
Yeah.
I think any of these three from India,
Okay.
lovely wines.
Okay.
The Vijay Amritraj VA White from
Okay.
Grover's, again, very lovely wine.
Mm-hmm.
These four, to me, the Viognier again from Big Banyan.
Okay.
Big Banyan. The Big Banyan Viognier, again, lovely wine. Very simple, uncomplicated stuff. Uh, as I said, for me, those are like, the uncomplicated stuff. I recently discovered a lovely wine that is being sold in Bangalore. It's called Riunite. It's a Lambrusco.
Okay.
Very, very moderately priced. I think it's around 1,700 bucks or thereabouts. I had it with pizza.
Okay.
And I recently had that same Lambrusco in Parma with 6 different types of Parma ham. And as you know, Parma ham is very salty.
Mm-hmm.
I said, salty. Indian food is known to be salty. I was saying, like if you're having something like a masala chaat or a dahi papdi or something of that sort, I said,
Yeah.
Lambrusco with that.
Yeah.
Or with dim sums,
Yeah.
our so many of us like dim sums and all that. And Indians, if you see, we like putting a bit of chili, a bit
Yeah.
of extra soy.
Yes.
That's because our palate is used to a bit more salt. We are used to bold flavors. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
We live life big. Our life, if you see, is filled with color, flavor, excitement, everything.
Yes.
So I said, this wine goes so beautifully with this, and it's available in two versions. One is what is called a frizzante.
Okay.
So, which is like a medium sparkling, and then you
Okay.
get the spumante, which is like a full sparkling. And I
Okay.
said, try the frizzante.
Yeah.
And uh, 23rd Street Pizza, which is here, I think, on Castle Street,
Yeah.
they serve that particular wine with pizza. I tell you, the combination comes out mind blowing. It's
I'm
really
definitely
fabulous.
gonna try
And I said,
it.
1,700 bucks, yeah, nice, sweet, red, sparkling. I
Yes.
tell kids, have Leo, try karo. I have not served it to anybody in India, and they said we didn't like it. Even at our Rotary Wine Fellowship AGM, I served this wine. This wine was the first to get over. People are saying, yaar, wo dusra wine koi nahi pee raha hai. So it's such a lovely wine. To me, that would be a great wine to have if I'm in a, like in a very stressed condition.
Yeah.
I'm gonna order pizza probably
Yeah.
from Brikavan or something,
Yeah.
because 23rd will not deliver all the way to Koramangala, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I'll take out this bottle of Lambrusco, Jai Jindabad, pizza and Lambrusco wine.
And immediately you're up.
Aye,
Yeah.
that is like the best. I'm comfort food. I'm gonna eat till I go into a carbo coma.
So I'm really fascinated about food and wine and the way you've been talking about it. So what sort of good food and good wine make magic together? And you can talk to us about South Indian food, about food from Mexico and different combinations that you've tried.
See, I tell people there are 3 or 4 products which I call are wine killers.
And what
Garlic
are they? Okay.
in excess.
Okay.
See, just a hint of garlic is fine, but you have more garlic, you're gonna kill yourself. You're gonna kill the wine. You're gonna kill your taste buds.
Okay.
You're also gonna kill your girlfriend. That's a different issue. She's gonna stay away from you for a long, long time. Uh, believe it or not, green asparagus. The only way to have green asparagus with wine is to char broil it or char roast it. You have to char that.
Okay.
Eggs, curiously, are a big wine killer because there is sulfur in the eggs which destroy the wine. So if you don't cook the eggs properly, it will, just destroy the taste of the wine.
Yeah.
Other than that, there are 2 ways to approach wine. Either you take what is called a complementary pairing or an opposing pairing. Now, a complementary pairing is what I told you, a Sauvignon Blanc which has tartness to it. I have it with a lemon rice. So the sourness of the rice is cutting through the sourness of the wine.
Okay.
And so what will happen is that you will then get to taste a sweeter version of the wine because the lemon rice is, the sour is cutting out the sour element. So now the sweet element is sort of coming to your tongue or coming, staying in your mind. In case of, as I told you, a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Syrah with a dosa, the the
Benny
tartness,
dosa.
the tannins in the red wine are cutting through the fat. So you're gonna get a slightly more dry version of the dosa, so to speak. And again, you're gonna get a smoother version of the wine because now the fat has cut through, the tannins have cut through, so you're getting a smoother taste of the wine.
Wow.
Uh, People must have heard of a wine called the Sauternes, which,
Okay.
the Chateau Yquem, which is like the king of Sauternes.
Okay.
But you get, of course, Sauternes are a lovely value for money. You can get, like, I tell people, look at a wine called Chateau Coutet, Coutet. It's only $40 a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for a Sauterne or a Barzac, it's a fabulous value because a typical bottle of Sauterne is going to be at least three digits in terms of dollar pricing. You get good late harvest. You can have that, for instance, with something salty.
Mm-hmm.
Just now we just talked about Lambrusco,
Yes.
a sweet sparkling wine. Again, have it with something salty.
Okay.
Uh, there are many ways
What
to.
about tandoori food?
With tandoori
Chicken,
food, I would.
naan paneer.
Yeah, I would recommend a Syrah
Okay.
because but you don't want a high alcohol Syrah.
Mm.
The reason you don't want a high alcohol Syrah is because otherwise the alcohol will accentuate the spicy flavor. If you see many times, many people, when they have their drink, they want green chilies with it.
Yeah.
Because that sort of, is a catalyst. They want the intensity
Yes.
of the chili to be magnified. In case of wine, you don't want that because you want to enjoy your food. You don't want to kill your food, or you don't want to kill your wine.
Yeah.
So, the one thing I always do tell people is wine is not conducive to what I call is our PPPPPKK. You know, PA, khai khiske. I should have, Anjali and me, we had come back from the US, Hey, US, you invite friends at 7, you typically serve dinner by about 7:30 or so, and then after dinner,
chill.
7:38, you serve dinner. This is an Indian situation. European, I mean, the Westerners there would be a little earlier. But by 7:30, you serve dinner, everybody has their dinner by 8:30, and then you sit down, you generally talk, you'll start, having some more of the wine, you're going to have some whiskey or whatever you feel like.
Conversations.
Conversation, etc. And of course, America not having a place where you have help, everybody helps out, clearing the thing, putting things away and all that. Okay, I invited my friends. I told them 7:30. They turn up by about 9. So I asked, as you put the dinner by 9:30, I bloody started getting galis galore. By 10:30, the party was over. And I'm going like, what the hell just happened?
Khao piyo kisko.
Literally, but this is not khao piyo. This is piyo, 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 khao kisko. That's why I said PPPKK. That is something we need to change.
Yes.
Wine is not really conducive just to snacking. Uh, Spirits also, if you look at it, whiskey and all is best enjoyed after dinner, and you don't want it loaded down with soda or water. Yeah? You just want it straight, few drops. Take a small sip at a time. Cleanse the palate of all the food tastes and all. So that you come up with a nice mellow malt kind of taste, things like that. Same thing with wine. It's something to be enjoyed with food. You can have it as a starter with some snacks, but you don't have wine, snacks, and then you just leave everything and go have dinner and leave the wine away. That's not going to work.
Yeah. You also mentioned something about gulab jamun and wine.
So, same thing, sweet cut sweet, just like I mentioned the combination of sour, Chitrana with Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
Same thing with sweet. If you see the Sauternes and many of your ice wines or your late harvest wines, they're very, very suited to have with dessert.
Okay.
Late harvest wines which are available in India are not so intensely sweet, so I would not have it with a typical, like a gulab jamun or a rasgulla or something. That I would have it with something a little more milder, maybe maybe a kheer or with some fruits or something, and it will really lift the whole experience to a different level. Sauterne being a nice sweet, I would dare to try it with a gulab jamun, but then I would try it with a gulab jamun that is not a commercial gulab jamun, one that is made at home, because at home we would have used more saffron in the chashni, and we would have used less sugar. In a hotel, they will tend to drown it in sugar, and that I feel might overpower the wine, and definitely they are bound by commercial considerations. They're not going to put saffron to the extent you would do it at home.
Yeah.
So the flavor of the saffron will never come. You might be just left with a feeling that I've got this dud piece of dough in my
Yeah.
mouth and kind of fruit on the other
Yeah.
side and nothing
Yeah.
else, you know.
No magic. And how about chaat? Chaat items?
Chaat ke liye, I would say try the Lambrusco because this thing
Okay.
it has got the sweet element, so it pairs well with salt.
Mm-hmm.
But chaat, unfortunately, also is got a very high chatpata factor to it.
Yes.
So it's something that because of that sweet, savory, spicy, all three elements being in quite a significant abundance, I would say chaat is best enjoyed by itself.
Yeah.
You know, a few dishes, maybe like a masala puri or I wouldn't even say papri ke chaat because you have put curds on it, you know, yogurt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that might flatten out the wine.
Correct.
So I would say enjoy the chaat, go back and have
Yeah.
some good wine and conversation.
And you were mentioning something about the Mexican dish.
Yeah, so the national dish of Mexico is a dish called chicken mole.
Mm-hmm.
And the primary ingredient in a mole sauce,
Is?
chocolate
Oh.
or cocoa.
Okay.
It's 100%. So cocoa, if you have 100% cocoa, it's actually a spice.
Uh,
It's actually feels spicy on the tongue. It is not sweet. But because the
yeah.
Europeans brought cocoa back to Europe and then mixed it with sugar, our natural perception when I use the word chocolate is sweet. Now, if
Yes.
I was to turn around and tell
I didn't
somebody
even
here
think
is
of.
chocolate chicken, they're gonna flip.
Yeah.
Or some chocolate this thing savory dish, they're gonna flip.
Yeah.
But a mole in reality is just cocoa, which is a savory dish with umpteen number of dry spices,
Okay.
including chilies and various things. It has I mean, mole is literally as individualistic as like a dahi ka kadi or any comfort food. Like I would say sambar. You know, the sambar in each house is unique to that house.
Yeah.
Or a dal is unique to that house. So mole is again very very
That's a new
unique to
learning for
each cook
me. Yeah.
that they make it. It's a lovely thing. And best
And
thing
which
is
wine with it?
with a mole again, I would go with a nice rich cabernet.
So, from inspiration to completion, can you share with us the process of writing your book, Wines Demystified? And what was it that you wanted people to know about wines through this book?
So, as I told you, the biggest thing I found about wine is people are very apprehensive. They're just
Okay.
outright scared.
Yeah.
I think,
Why?
over a period of time, that, as you said, na, you earlier mentioned, there's this mystique about wine. It's very structured. I must have the right glasses.
Yeah.
I must do everything.
Methodology.
Yeah, I said, I wanted to sort of a lot of friends of mine would ask me questions. Hey, Devesh, what is this wine? What is the flavor of this? How do I store wine? How do I serve wine? How do I do this? How do I... And so I said, let me write a book in as plain English that I could. I wanted to, in fact, Mr. Mohan Kumar, when he was GM of the Taj, he came up with the title. I was wondering, I said, what title? He says, Devesh, you're demystifying wines
Yeah.
for your friends. Just call it Wines Demystified.
Yeah, as simple as
Break down
that.
the mystique, make it simple. So that was the inspiration. And basically, as I kept researching, I started discovering the history of wine.
Okay.
As I told you, the Greeks,
Yes.
diluting their wine with seawater, or rather using the wine to make the seawater palatable, kind of thing. The Romans and how things went forward. King Porus, even today the word Madeira,
Yeah.
Madeira, the wine from Greece
Yes.
originally. Now Madeira is in Spain, but Greece again has the same, the fortified, strong, red, sweet wines, which could withstand the heat of southern Europe,
Yeah.
of northern India.
Yeah.
These wines have been there.
So these are all described in your books, you're saying, in your
I
book.
didn't go so deep into it. I wanted to make it sort of simple. See, I think the book is about 32 pages.
Okay.
It's just a PDF. Anybody can download it. It's a
Yeah.
labor of love. I'm not printing it or anything. Just ideas reading it. I'm in the process of trying to refresh it now so that,
Okay.
I can just improve, add some better pictures and sing.
No experiences.
Not so much. I just want to update. Like for
Yeah.
instance, one of the grape varietals that I had earlier not covered much was Tempranillo,
Mm-hmm.
which is from Spain. The Rioja grape, the grape of Rioja, is now being grown quite a bit in India. So,
Okay.
like Viognier was covered briefly, but now it's become much more.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am simply enamored by that grape. I'll be honest with you. Everybody, they're so used to ordering a label. That is the next thing I tell people. Please don't
Yeah.
get bogged down by labels. The
Yeah.
number of times I've gone to a party, even in the best of five stars, where I know they have very competent bar teams, and I'll go to them and I'll say, "What are you serving?" Sir, I've got Sula white, I've got Sula red. I say, yeah, Sula makes something like 20 different labels. What white do you have? Sir, I've got Sula Chenin Blanc. I've got Sula Cabernet Shiraz. So I've so many times I've seen whether at Bangalore Club and all, they'll just say, okay, what wine do you have? And say, madam, I've got Sula, I've got Grover. Okay, yeah, Sula de do. Now, within that itself, see, they are no longer looking at what they're drinking. They're just drinking kind of a label.
Mm.
That is not what wine is about. And that's the one culture I would urge people to, if you really want to experience wine, you need to know what you're drinking.
And you'll know in the bottle at the back?
Immediately on the top of the bottle
Okay.
itself, it'll say Sula, Chenin Blanc. It'll tell you the year of production, if not in the front, at the year at the back.
Mm.
You will automatically see what was the wine, what is the grape varietal, because India still follows the new world system of just having the grape varietal. If you see, much of Europe is all just the region. I'm a Chablis, or I'm a Bordeaux white, or I'm from the Côte d'Ivoire region. So I can guess that, okay, if you're from southern France, you're gonna have the typical GSM blend. If you're from Bordeaux, you're gonna have the Bordeaux blend of Cab Sauv, Petit Verdot, Merlot, blah blah blah. If you're from Burgundy, it's gonna be a Pinot Noir, and if it's Champagne, it's gonna be these three wines. If it's a white from Burgundy, it's gonna be Chardonnay. If it's a white from Bordeaux, it's going to be Semillon blend with
So these are
Sauvignon Blanc.
basic knowledge, you're saying?
See, you get to learn this once
Yes.
you start
Yeah.
discovering. I say
Yeah.
the new world makes it easy. Boss, I've got a Chenin Blanc, I've got a Sauvignon Blanc, I've got a Chardonnay, I've got a Cabernet Sauvignon, I've got a Cab Shiraz blend. So like for instance, Christmas Cabernet Sauvignon is I would consider one of the best red wines made in India today.
And now we have AI also, right? So you can scan the bottle and then
Yeah.
you get so many details about
Yeah,
it.
there is a
And
wonderful app called Wine Searcher.
okay.
I use that a lot.
Mhm.
I have a professional subscription to it, but you can take a photograph, it identifies a bottle, or you can type in the names.
Yeah.
Maybe Indian names are not yet so common on
Okay.
it, but you can go when you travel overseas, you can get to see. I tell people, by and large, don't buy wine in duty free.
Mm.
It is not worth it.
Why?
Absolutely not. Airports charge anywhere up to 35% of the billing as their rental. So typically, what you're paying on the bottle is probably 5 times greater than what the input product was.
So much so for duty free.
Yes, because it goes away in all the fees and all that the airports and the retailers use. So to truly have good wines, or to get wines at a decent price when you're going overseas, go to a store. You will get much better deals. And if you go to one of the specialized type of stores and ask, they will suggest wines for you. That's a great way to discover. Seriously.
Any specialized stores you would like to name or you've come across
I have not participated in wine tours. I've always been a type of guy, like recently I celebrated my 60th birthday getting onto a Harley, riding from Milan all the way down to Bucharest in Romania, and coming back with my wife sitting behind me. And so
that must have been something.
it was fun. It was fun. 4,500 kilometers. We were with another group of friends. We have a group called the International Fellowship of Motorcycle Rotarians. I'm a Rotarian.
Yeah,
And
I
one of
read
the
about
founders
it.
of the motorcycle fellowship. And
And also
So,
that you have to cross 1,000 kilometers or miles to be in the Harley.
oh, no, 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 no. That is separate. That Club
Okay.
100 was
Yeah.
if you ride your Harley in India for over 1 lakh kilometers, once you cross 1 lakh kilometers, you get a patch called
And
Club
you have
100.
that.
Yeah. I've been riding since
What have you not
1984.
done?
Musty. And live life to the fullest. You
Yes.
live life to the fullest. Live life for your friends. Live life for your family. Don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, life will beat you down. There are a lot of people who are, they'll say, no, why should I? I don't want to disrupt anything. I say, boss, you don't worry about society. Don't worry about this. You go do what you like to do. At the end of it, do what you like to do. That's the way to do these things.
Yeah. So, do you have any tips for beginners wanting to enhance their palate?
No, as I said, when you start tasting wines, if you have a friend who knows wines, sit with them.
Hmm.
Open a few bottles.
Hmm.
See what you like, see what you don't like.
Hmm.
Maybe the first time you're going to have a wine,
Hmm.
many times I tell people the first sip of a white wine, for instance, or red wine also, first time you have it, is going to taste very sour. It's going to be literally an assault on your senses.
Hmm.
And you say, crap now. Rinse your mouth out with some water and taste it again.
Okay.
Give it time. Try to discover the flavors behind it.
Hmm.
Don't go in with certain expectations.
What are the different flavors and how do you distinguish like between a savory, floral, meaty, oaky?
That's exactly what it is. See, flavors are essentially our memories.
Yeah.
If I was to tell how many, how do you use it? How many people in, say, America, Europe would be familiar with the flavor of guavas?
Hmm.
It's not a natural fruit to them. It
No,
may be
it's
now
not.
getting exported.
Hmm.
Similarly, remember I told you tasting notes, notes of acacia flower. Well, how many people in India have bloody smelt an acacia flower? I had to, resort to one of those big boxes of flavors, that help you train and understand. But before that, in my life, I had not smelt an acacia
Yeah.
flower, which is actually, I think, predominantly native to Africa.
What is this big box that you're talking about of flavors?
Oh, you can buy this box of aromas
Okay.
that is used to, train your palate.
Mm.
So typically, professionals use that.
Okay.
I had a friend of mine who's a winemaker, so they opened it and they made us smell the various.
And you get it easily?
Yeah, you can buy it. May
Mm.
not be in India, but it's available overseas. I tell people don't waste your time with that.
Yeah. Feel
See,
and experience
ultimately,
it.
flavors, aromas, tastes, these are all built in our memory.
Yeah.
Uh, how many people in South will be able to appreciate, I think, what they call the Gondaraj lemon, which is popular in Bengal.
Mm.
On the flip side, how many people in the North would be able to appreciate chakka,
Mm.
which is ripe jackfruit?
Mm.
Most typical people in the North are going to go,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So each region has its own set of flavors, and that's what builds up your memory. So you asked me earlier about curiosity. The curiosity comes from being willing to try these various flavors,
Yeah.
understand them, what they are, and so ultimately, when you start looking at wine, also, you are going to take that smell
Mm.
and the flavor and relate it back to something that you have already experienced. Because if it's an unknown flavor or an unknown smell, then you will not be able to relate it to anything.
Yeah. How is port made? And why is it amazing? And why does port taste so good?
Okay. Port wine is made from a grape called Turiga Nacional.
Mm-hmm.
And originally, it's essentially what is called a fortified wine. So, what happens is that during the fermentation process, yeast can only live to a certain level of alcohol concentration. What used to happen in the old days, remember I told you sailors would carry wines.
Yes.
And they would carry it in these little things called wine butts, the smaller size casks. What happened was, by the time they reached their destination, because of the heat, especially the Portuguese were trying to explore routes to India. By the time they reached, the wine would get spoiled. So what they started doing is they started adding a spirit like brandy or any other form of distilled spirit to the wine, raising the alcohol level close to 20%. That would kill the yeast midway. So that's why you have a very high sugar level, which is why people like. So, see, what we call port wine, which is available from Goa, is is essentially just sweetened grape juice with alcohol added to it.
Okay.
It's not anywhere close to what a port should be.
Okay.
A port wine is exactly that. It's a fortified wine. So
What is fortified wine?
It's fortified with spirit.
Okay.
So what I do is, once I raise the alcohol level in the juice, ultimately fermentation is any sugary product, whether it's bread, whether it's our dosa, whether it is fruit juice, grain, anything. They contain sugars, and that's what gets fermented. It's basically high school chemistry, if you recall. So once I reaches a certain point, if I recall around 16.5%, the yeast cannot sustain anymore. It's, after all, yeast is a living organism. So what they would do is they would add enough this thing where the strength of the juice now has gone to 19-20%. The yeast dies.
Okay.
Now, when there is no more natural, there's no. It's sort of in a way how if we raise the acid level, if you see we add lime or oil to our pickles and all that, it kills the bacterial this thing. So that's the basic concept.
Okay.
So what happens is when the yeast dies, the fermentation, the sugar still remains in the juice. So the wine is not evolving anymore. There is nothing, quote unquote, I wouldn't use the word living, so to speak, but we talk about wine being a living sort of product. So it does have the natural elements to it, but the bacteria that could potentially make it go bad has died off.
Okay.
So, and it cannot survive at that high alcohol environment. That is why port wine is used.
Okay.
Port wine, because it's so sweet and it's so robust, it's typically had at the end of the meal in moderate quantities. And if you see the typical, pairing of port wine is with, some nice pungent cheese like blue cheese or something of that sort, or it's had just by itself. So that's the typical pairing. You could also have port wine with chocolate.
And can you educate us on the difference between on the different wines, basically red wine, white wine, ice wine,
So simply
desert
put,
wine,
typically,
yeah,
and this is again just very broad.
rosé.
That's my favorite. Rosé is my favorite wine. Uh, White wines are typically made from grapes that are which are green in color. So from Bangalore, if you see, we have our usual table grapes, a similar type.
Yeah.
I can, however, also make white wine from a red grape or a black grape, like Pinot Noir is used to make champagnes.
Okay.
In fact, I can make 100% Pinot Noir based champagne, which is totally white. It is all to do with. So let me begin. Basically, you take any grape, you crush it, juice comes. I put yeast in it. I put it in a stainless steel tank. I ferment it, and I start getting wine. Now I can do what is called malolactic fermentation, which is a secondary fermentation to convert, to give the wine a more rounded, buttery taste, which is why if you see the classic Californian Chardonnays and the Australian Chardonnays are considered big, bold, buttery because they've done malolactic. And you'll see they're all typically 14.5% alcohol.
Okay.
Whereas the unoaked Chardonnays or the unoaked Sauvignon Blancs and all will be having a lot more crisp taste to it, as we call it, which is basically a tart taste. Crisp gives me a nice crisp flavor in the mouth. So that is typically a white. A red is essentially
And sorry, one more thing. White wine, you also mentioned that there is this particular white wine which has a pink tinge to it. Can you talk to us
actually,
about
it's more than a pink tinge. It's it's available in Bangalore. The wine is called Radicon.
Okay.
I think Radikon.
Okay.
CV, if I remember, is the particular label.
Okay.
I'm very sure many of your viewers will be familiar with Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio actually, as a grape, is pink skinned.
Okay.
So what these people have done is they keep the skin in the grape, which is why I was saying the same way a red wine.
Yeah.
The color of a red wine comes from the grape skins.
Skin. Mm.
Because if you see that typical of a good old Bangalore blue,
Yeah.
the dark grape,
Grapes.
if
Yeah.
I squeeze it, the inside is kind of, the pulp is green
Yeah.
and it's this thing, it'll produce white juice.
Yeah.
It's only when I put the skin in along with the juice will it draw the color out of the skin.
Yeah.
It'll also draw, if you notice, when we have the full grape, it creates a little bit of a pucker factor. It gives you a little bit of roughness in the mouth. That
Yeah.
is what is called the tannins of the grape.
Okay.
So that's what when we say tannins, it's that little feeling of roughness. So that's why when we say the tannins have become silky, smooth, that blah, blah, blah. Those are, when the wine is very young, it's like basically drinking grape juice.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all those rough edges. And over a period of time, when I put it in a barrel, it has smoothened it out. The wood itself also imparts a certain flavor to the wine. Just like in Scotch whiskey, you see, I'll get sherry cask and all that. Guess what? They use wine barrels to make whiskey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So, if you see portwood, sherry cask, PX cask. PX is the type of grape called Pedro Jimenez, PX, Ximenes. Pedro Jimenez is again a grape from Spain.
Okay.
There's a lovely wine called Don PX. It's a label called Don PX. Or you can get an Alviar. There are bottles of Don PX available which are called the Convento Selection from 1946 and 1944. I somehow managed to find one bottle. So I've told myself, hold it till the year 2044 so that you can drink a century-old wine. And it stays. It stays.
Wow,
it's got so much sugar in it.
yeah.
It's because it's like literally drinking concentrated fig juice.
So it's like a dessert wine?
It's, yes.
Okay.
It's imagine apne the dry figs come in the dry fruits. Imagine you just take that, put it into a blender, and you made like almost like a paste out of it. It's halfway between a paste and a syrup. It's really, really lovely. And you can open it and leave it for 6 months in your fridge. Nothing will happen to it.
Remember you said that wine tastes best when you share it with friends.
Yes.
So
as I said, for that particular wine, I'm waiting for it to hit the 100-year mark. Hopefully, I'll be alive in 2044. Who knows?
Be, I'm sure.
But so red wine is essentially same concept, but except I put the skins, so that's what imparts the color. In case of rosé, also it is very similar thing, except I put the skins for a shorter period of time.
Okay.
So that's how I get I get a pink color. I don't get a deep red color. And rosé wines, I think, are probably the most suited for India, given the heat of our food, given the heat of our weather, and the robustness of flavors. It's a pink wine, for lack of a better word, that is served chilled. Beautiful with your typical, say, like a dim sum brunch or something like that. It's like something you can just enjoy aram se sitting out, because it comes from the region of Provence, which is the hot part of France. A lot of fresh food, very much like India, in terms of food, flavors, robustness. So we were coming back to the Radicon CV that I was saying. It's a similar concept. The Pinot Grigio grape actually has got a pink skin.
Okay.
So they put the wine they put the skins in the wine.
Yeah.
So it turns rust pink in color. It's a really fancy wine.
Yeah.
You need a nice big bowl glass. It really releases its aromas. You might even say, oh, it smells a bit funky, but it's a lovely acidic flavor.
Okay.
I tell people, if nothing else, if you don't like it that way, just cut a few fruits and throw it into it. And it's beautiful. Especially my son, we tasted it together last night, and he's a youngster. He's like 32 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey man, I like this.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, he says, this will go great at our parties and all that. I'm going, okay.
And what kind of fruits can you cut and put?
Anything.
Anything?
Any hard fruit, apple, pear,
Okay.
कुछ भी डाल. See, it's your taste. It's your wine. Taste it like this. You don't like it like this. Take a little separate glass, cut a bit of fruit, see how it comes out. You like it, great. You don't like it, hey, mistake. Sort of lesson learned.
Be experimental.
Yeah, if you without experimenting. So then now you were talking about ice wines. Now, ice wines and dessert wines and late harvest wines, they all basically rely on reducing the quantum of liquid in the grape.
Okay.
To achieve it, they come through it at different ways. Sauterne, for instance, relies on a fungus called botrytis. The process is called botrytis. Sorry. It basically shrivels the grape. So effectively, I'm retaining the same sugar levels, but the amount of liquid in the grape is coming less. So now I'm getting a concentration of flavor. The same process applies with late harvest. After the grape has ripened, it may not have got hit by this bacteria, but it's beginning to shrivel. Ice wine, on the other hand, relies on the cold climates of Germany, Austria, and Canada. After the first freeze, they go out at night and pick it at midnight when the grapes are fully frozen. So the water has essentially kind of evaporated. Literally from each grape, you will get just one drop of juice. So it's very concentrated.
Okay.
And which is why you will see all your late harvest wines, your dessert wines, sauternes, and all these kind of wines, ice wines and all are quite expensive because the output is very low. And the losses also in terms of on the plant itself. I'm losing a significant portion of the grapes to the freeze or to the botrytis.
Yeah. Coming to our next question, you're the founder of Wine Connoisseurs and the Rotarians Wine Fellowship of India. Do you have any goals for these organizations?
I can tell you the intentions with which we started. As I pointed out earlier, Wine Connoisseurs was essentially founded as a group of wine lovers who had their own cellars. So therefore, they would have evolved much further in their wine journey. In terms of, they know what they want because they've invested in the wine fridge itself. And then you have bought wines, you have stored them, that kind of thing. So it's designed for people who have their own cellars. And we meet once a month, and we will meet typically at somebody's house or something like that, and we will share wines. So each member takes 1 month in rotation and opens up their cellar and takes out wines, and we share the cost of the wines.
Okay.
And each wine, there is a presentation made.
Okay.
How it is made.
Okay.
We discuss the wines. That's what it is. The whole focus of that group is not just enjoying good wines, but learning about wines. Earlier, if you remember, when I told you, for a long period of time, my knowledge on wines was limited to North America. After I started the Wine Connoisseurs, my knowledge expanded to all the other regions because friends had thing in different, like one particular person likes Bordeaux, another person likes Burgundy, one more person likes Spain, third person likes Italy. Some people say I like only Chardonnay, somebody likes only Cab, somebody likes only Shiraz. And so, like for instance, you mentioned Shobha Narayan. The other day in our get together, she brought 9 Pinot Noirs from across the world, not just the classic French or anything. And you will not believe we tasted it blind. The number one Pinot Noir happened to be a $10 Pinot Noir from Australia, not a $100 Pinot Noir from Burgundy.
How interesting.
So I tell people, don't drink the label.
And how do you? So what is your organization doing to spread this word to not just Bangalore but the other parts of
this? As I said, it's not an organization. That Wine Connoisseurs is just a group of friends.
Okay.
It's not a formal organization.
Okay.
It's like we call ourselves Wine Connoisseurs, and we're like about, as I said, 18 of us. We get together once a month. It's like a private group of friends.
Okay.
If any of your viewers are having their own cellars and they would like to join our group, they are welcome to reach out to me.
So who are eligible to join this?
Anybody who, our group, we ask people to come for 1 or 2 events.
Okay.
See if they are comfortable
Connecting it
with
with it.
people,
Yeah.
with our members, if there is a connect, do they feel comfortable? Because ultimately it's a group of friends.
Yeah.
If somebody is not comfortable in that group, they are not ever going to like it.
Yeah.
The second thing we say is you have to be serious about not just having a wine cellar, but having wanting to learn about the wines.
Exactly. So do you do events other cities also?
No, no, it's
No.
purely a group of friends amongst ourselves.
Okay. Okay,
We
got it.
have friends coming from other cities, and
Hmm.
sometimes friends would invite us to
Hmm.
their cities. Like
Hmm.
I was telling you yesterday, these wines that.
Yeah.
So a particular friend had come from Chennai
Okay.
along with his wife.
Okay.
So he's already said yes. Next time you're bringing these wines and coming to Chennai because his Chennai group is too focused on reds. He says, Devesh, I need to expand their white
Yes.
wine horizons.
Yeah.
So he says, I want you to bring something like that Skeet Field
Yeah.
Chardonnay
Yeah.
across to Chennai. I want people to experience in
Yeah.
the heat of Chennai what a nice, lovely, cool, chilled Chardonnay can do for them.
Correct.
That kind of thing. So that's how
You're
you
growing.
make friends, you
Yeah.
grow. That kind of thing. And so, in case of the Rotarians Wine Fellowship, it's very similar to the Bangalore Wine Club. It's a more broad-based club. Members are they are typically interested in wine, but they may not have. They definitely many of them will not have a wine cellar, and so for that it is more a bigger group. It's like a wine club. That's a proper wine club organization.
Okay.
Just like the Bangalore Wine Club, Rotary and Wine Fellowship. And now there are youngsters who are getting together and organizing, I think, their own wine clubs.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm told that it's interesting.
Mm.
I would urge your younger viewers to go find these people out.
Yeah. There is a fear in wine industry that marijuana has become easier and less risky to obtain. So do you think wine will lose out to the legalized cannabis?
I have no idea. I would prefer to stick to wine, but uh, no, if anything, I think the wine industry faces a greater threat from the beer industry.
Okay.
And
Why do you say that?
because you are seeing, see, let's look at the microbrewery industry.
Mm-hmm.
The microbrewery industry uses all imported ingredients. Even the grain is coming from overseas.
Okay.
For craft brews, craft beers, they use 2 row barley. That means on the head, the barley has got only 2 rows of grain. The commercial breweries, they use six row barley.
Okay.
6 row barley doesn't have the intensity and character of flavor. It's kind of a mass kind of product.
Yeah.
And that's what, if you see, mass bottled beers are just mass products. Craft beers have got a lot of character and flavor to it. Even the hops are imported, but the brew masters are Indian. So they can take an imported product, convert it into Indian flavors.
Okay.
The wine industry, unfortunately, in India is using local product, but trying to make wine in a foreign style.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we want to make a French style Chardonnay, or I want to make a this. I said, whatever happened to understanding Indian flavors and making an Indian this thing? Why do you have to use just a foreign grape varietal like a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Syrah or a Chardonnay or a Riesling or a Viognier or
Yeah.
so many other Tempranillo and all these kind of grape varietals? What about any native grape varieties? And what about the style of making the wine? What are you doing to suit the Indian palate? If you're going to try to suit the Western palate, it's not going to appeal to the Indian palate, number one. Number two, it is not really going to pair with Indian food.
So have they taken your point well?
I don't think so,
Okay.
unfortunately, which is why wine, if you see, is still fairly restricted. The other thing I mentioned to you, if you remember, was the concept of wine coolers, the ready-made,
Yeah.
wine with a bit of fruit juice, with a bit
Yeah.
of this, that nice little spritzy little thing.
Yeah.
Kids can open the bottle, have a drink, which is not going to, blow them away.
Like in cans also, you're saying.
Well, those are wines in a can is different thing, but
Yeah.
wine coolers were basically like a midi bottle,
Yeah, yeah.
just exactly like how a
Get
Bacardi
it.
Breezer is.
Yeah.
Except what that particular brand has done is they've taken their white rum and added it to like a synthetic flavor base. I am saying here, take a natural product like wine, add a bit of fruit juice like you do in sangria, make it, add a bit of fizz that makes it preserved. Sell it in the market, yeah. Kids
Yeah.
will like, they want something different. Try
Yeah.
karenge, they will like the taste, they'll start gravitating towards wine. They're
Yeah.
starting, it's kind of like I tell people many times, you want to start a wine, you start with a sangria. You want a bit of that sweetness. And my question to the winemakers is, why not make a sweet wine?
Mm.
We were just now talking Lambrusco, comes from Italy, from the town of Parma, known for very salty Parma ham. Why in the blue blazes do I not have a nice sweet red wine? Just because it doesn't appeal to, oh, the classic Western wine? Crap, sorry.
What are some of your favorite wine regions, and what makes them special to you?
I like whites from Alsace.
Sorry, again?
Alsace, which
Okay.
is northeast France, bordering Germany.
Okay.
So your Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Pinot Gris.
And you spent some time there.
I have not, believe it or not, but I love the wines from there because they have the whites. They basically make only whites.
Okay.
Uh, they have this very delicate quality about them. So I love that. I love whites from Bordeaux. I think they are a value proposition that, like, you take a bottle of, like, say, Domaine de Chevalier or Chateau Smith Haute Lafitte, you're going to get a white wine that is as close to 100 points as possible, and you're going to spend less than $100 for it. If I was to go and get a wine from Burgundy, even a Grand Cru Chablis or a Corto Charlemagne, uh, I am not paying anything less than $200-300 for something that is even more than 95 points. Because that is the nature of that grape, and this is the nature of this grape, and what they're able to produce. I mean, the world's most expensive wines, if you take Domaine Romano Conti, which is like anywhere from 4 to 5 figures per bottle, over $10,000 a bottle. And there is a waiting list from here to eternity for those wines. Comes from Burgundy. The most expensive Bordeaux is still one-tenth the bloody price of a Domaine Romano Conti. Yeah. But, but coming back, I would not today say that I've got a favorite region per se. Like I discovered, thanks to friends again in wine connoisseurs, I discovered a region called Franciacorta. Franciacorta is just northeast of Milan in Italy. Makes sparkling wine in the classic champagne style. I would pay over $150 bottle for a good champagne. I have paid less than $60
Ah,
for a fabulous Franciacorta.
okay.
So it's all just discovering. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no, for me, I'll be honest with you, there's no single go-to, though I would lean towards whites. And
Okay.
if I'm going towards whites again, I would love to just
Experiment.
experiment, just explore.
What are the success and challenges you faced in promoting wine culture in India, and how have you overcome them?
I, honest to God, since I'm not from the industry, I just give people my bare thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't go with an agenda,
Okay.
except to tell people, don't be apprehensive. Start tasting wine. You like it, stay with it. If you have a friend who can guide you, even better.
Yeah.
Don't stop immediately on the first drink and say, I never liked wine. There are a number of people who told me, अरे यार मेरे को वाइन समझ में नहीं आता है, बहुत खट्टा है. मैंने बोला यार थोड़ा स्वीट वाइन से शुरू करो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? But don't give up.
Yeah.
Did you give up the first time you stumbled and fell when you were walking? If your parents let you stop walking from the moment you were able to stand on your 2 feet as a baby in a nappy and you stumbled and fell and hurt yourself, you would have been probably bedridden for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you see the Indian wine industry evolving in the next few years? And what are some global trends you hope will reach India?
As I pointed out, this is an old thing about wine, the wine spritzers.
Yeah.
Globally, if you see, countries around the world have realized that wine, what it can contribute to their agrarian market, the agriculture market,
Yeah.
and they don't tax wine. Even countries like Hong Kong, which import 100% of their wine, they don't tax wines.
Mm.
And you're seeing people drinking wine instead of drinking hard spirits. So you don't land up becoming, the alcoholism rates are far lesser. You don't have all these issues every once in a while of, somebody selling spurious liquor. If you see the word liquor, you see people, would you like to have a wine? No, no, I'm sorry, I don't drink liquor. I'm going like, since when did wine become a liquor?
Yeah.
When did beer become a liquor?
They don't fall in that category.
No, they don't. And so, globally, governments around the world have realized that keep taxes on these kinds of natural products less. It will promote alternate, consumption. And it people know the beneficial effects of red wine, on the heart and all that. So these are trends I hope that the Indian government realizes and unshackles the Indian wine industry. I also think they should reduce import tariffs
Why?
because I think the Indian wine industry is a bit too protected and too comfortable. It needs to experience competition. If you see,
Yeah.
I don't think you're old enough to remember when Maruti was first brought into the market and the impact that it did to the Indian car industry from that old traditional Ambassador and Fiat, or the traditional Bajaj scooter, and how the Yamahas and the Ind Suzukis and the Hero Hondas and all that did to that market. So in a way, competition is good,
Yeah.
and if you allow this to come in, it spurs the local wine industry and the beer industry to, let's look at beer. See the number of people who have, how many brands today are available? When I was growing up, you were lucky to be able to get a Kingfisher. You would maybe get a, Kalyani Black Label, and you would get a UB Export. A little bit of Mysore breweries stuff here and there. That's it. Today, the industry is awash with brands.
Yeah.
And you've got some expensive brands, you've got some very low brands. But guess what? On the whole, the industry has improved. Volumes have increased. People are not going, kids are today enjoying a beer more. I mean, you go to a microbrewery also, the number of kids that are there, I mean, they're all average, typically 30 and below, 40 and below. And I'm so happy to see that, yes, you're having a beer and you're having a good time. You're not bloody shooting spirits and tequila shots and this and that.
That's
I used to
unnecessary.
live, I live, and there was a bar opposite me. The number of times at night on a Friday or Saturday, I've seen young women stagger out of that bar, and they really have no idea. They are in no condition to even tell the auto fellow where they are going. So, I would sit them down literally at the steps of my house, get them some coffee, get them sober enough where I could get their address, call the auto and make sure कि बेटा तेरा auto number मेरे पास है और ये पता है.
That's kind
Then,
of you.
no, see, I'm just saying, ki, come on, I've been a kid here. I remember when the moment I got the freedom to drink, it was like, oh man, there's this some, magical spirit.
Yeah.
So what I did with my kids was, from the time they were about 15 or 16, I let them taste beer, I let them taste a bit of wine, so that for them, when they turned 18 or 21, for them, alcohol was no magical elixir. So they didn't go, berserk on it.
Yeah.
So both the kids.
That's a good idea.
It is. It is something that, see, that has to come within the culture. And that culture, even today, is so, he daru pita, he's not a good fellow. He drinks.
Very judgmental.
Yeah. I, I tell people, yeah, come on, you have pickles which are fermented.
Yeah.
You have dahi which is fermented. Your dosa is fermented. Your chila is fermented. Your idli is fermented. It has trace amounts of alcohol. How can you turn around and say, I'm a teetotaler? I'm sorry. That does not work out. Chemically, it is not possible.
We noticed that you're best friends with your Harley Davidson motorcycle.
No, I'm best friends with my wife. That I have to correct you on. I am most happy when my wife is sitting behind me on my Harley
That is so
Davidson.
sweet. Why did you talk about your relationship with your wife?
Why did I talk about it?
Why
She,
don't you? I
well,
mean,
she's my partner in life. She
yeah.
has been with me since the best of times and the worst of times. When I have been, in some of the worst conditions of my life, she was standing by me. She comes from a very, very privileged family. In a way, I would say she is kind of married down,
Mm-hmm.
but she's been my rock. I am the wild one. I'm the guy who's highly mercurial, excited type. She's the one who always holds me, keeps me level to the ground. Sometimes, not all the time. I mean, sometimes I'm uncontrollable even for her. But
Yeah.
she's she's the love of my life.
So
Uh,
it's true that behind every successful man there is a woman.
Oh yeah, she's not behind me. She's side by side me. If anything, I keep telling people she's the MBA from Sydenham. I'm not. So she's the business guru. I'm just a dumb clock engineer. I just this thing. But yes, I love bikes. I've
And
been
what
riding.
sparked your passion for riding?
Hey, as a kid, since 19, I mean, as a kid, yeah, as a typical college kid back in the late 70s, would love to ride two-wheelers, motorcycles, scooters. And that just continued. Moved to When I moved to the US in 1982, 83, I bought a bike, I think by 84. So I've been riding Harley since about 84.
Wow, that's long.
Done about
Any memorable trips, places?
across the US. Canadian Rockies, especially. I used to typically get on my bike and just go from Texas up through Oklahoma, Kansas, hang a left at Kansas, go past Denver over the Eisenhower Tunnel, and then get into the Canadian Rockies and just ride. So, uh, uh, lovely, lovely places, all the way up to Yellowstone, Jackson Hole, up into Montana. Uh, the western part of the United States is actually very beautiful. I tell people, if you want to enjoy the United States, you need to be outdoors. Don't try to don't. Europe is in its cities. Uh, it has a lot of attractions within its cities because its cities are much older.
And has history.
It has history, museum architecture, etc. United States is a young country. It's only about
Hmm.
250 years, or not even about 1776 is the official formation, but yeah, it's only about 250 years old. So uh, it's how to put it. It lives. America is in its outdoors. The kind of scenic wonders, the extremes that you can experience in the United States, from extreme heat to extreme cold to extreme greenery to extreme dryness. I mean, you go down into Death Valley and all. It's like 56. They actually record your number when you go from one station just to ensure that you have reached the other side. Because if you get trapped in Death Valley, you're not going to survive for more than a day.
And did you go there?
I've gone through Death Valley. It's it's barren. It's just stone, sand, heat. But let's see. People go to Rajasthan in India.
Yeah.
It's in that barrenness there
Dryness,
is
yeah.
beauty.
Ah, absolutely.
But at the same time, I urge people in India go to Spiti.
Guru?
The Spiti Valley.
Okay.
From Chandigarh, go towards Shimla, beyond Shimla to Thiog, Sangla, Nagko, Kaza, Tabo, all that. Chicham, go all the way to Gramfu,
Okay.
Losar. So Chicham, Losar, Gramfu, and then come down through the Atal Tunnel. It's a fabulously beautiful place. Fabulously beautiful, beautiful greenery, indigo blue skies. No, just light blue. Yeah, beautiful indigo blue skies. Of course, make sure you buy SPF 100 and topo it on your face like plaster. Not even, don't be gentle with it. Otherwise, you're gonna come back like somebody has poured black paint on you. Seriously. But Ladakh is barren beauty. Northeast of India again, and when you go to these border states,
Yeah.
you will see the Indian Armed Forces. And I
Hmm.
tell people, if you truly want to appreciate under what hostile conditions the armed forces protect India, you need to go there. In fact, just the other day, a friend of mine, or rather, I would say an acquaintance of mine, was cursing. He said, "The Indian Armed Forces are blah 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 blah." I said, "Go there. Appreciate under what conditions they are protecting your right to insult them, because that's something we enjoy in India.
Yeah.
Ask the people of Hong Kong how much can they now call out the premier and president of China. All their freedoms get curtailed. We have those freedoms in India.
Yes,
It's
we
something
do.
I love.
So aviation is also another interest for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the chance to fly?
Oh, yeah. I have a pair of pilot wings, but never flew commercial.
Okay. Well, how? So, what was your experience with aviation?
My love
What
of,
have you done?
in terms of flying aircraft, I still would love to fly a glider. I first trained on gliders. And to me, it's one of the more challenging aircraft to fly because, unlike any other aircraft, a glider has no engines.
Mm.
So it constantly forces you to think ahead where you're going, how you're going to do there, and what are you going to do, options. It makes you automatically, naturally create plan Bs and plan Cs in your mind
Yeah.
as you're flying because you have no engine to pull you out of trouble. You
When did
screw
you do
up.
this?
Sorry?
When did you do this?
Yeah, right here, Jakur,
Okay.
Bangalore,
Okay.
1980s.
Okay.
Early 80s, late 70s.
One interesting
Number one
person.
Karnataka NCC Air.
Okay. Sorry, you were talking about gliders, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
so
have my.
gliders. I mean, I learnt on gliders, Rohini and Sedbergs. There was a lovely instructor by the name of BB Singh. Yeah, so I've got still some friends from that particular time that I was in number one Karnataka NCC Air.
Do they still have it?
Oh, I think yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's there at the flying school. So
So you had to think.
you have to, now, because once the winch pulls you up, you get to a certain altitude. Once you release it,
Yeah.
now you're on your own.
So you're
Okay, the
not
gliders have
scared?
got extra large wings to
Yeah.
help keep you afloat, but you're constantly trading distance for height.
Mm.
In case of gliders, the wings are very large to reduce that ratio,
Mm.
but it is still a equation that you're going to, you are going to keep coming down.
Yeah.
So you have to plan ahead what you have to plan to do, and in case something unexpected happens. Now, I remember once we were on a flight, and we got a thermal, and before I realized what was happening, we were almost at 10,000 feet AGL, above the ground. Now that's almost 13,000, 15,000 feet, and we were in our simple, NCC shirt, and we were at 15,000 feet. The damn thing had turned cold, but it was the thrill of my life because I was up in the air for more than an hour.
And you were not scared?
No, you like it. It's a surreal experience.
Okay.
It's like enjoying probably a first growth wine or then
Okay.
some. It was really a fabulous experience,
Okay.
and but I've seen situations where somebody is approaching for a landing, and all of a sudden they hit, a microburst or something which pushes the plane down. And now, if you have not planned enough speed, you're going to go into the road. You're not, or into the wall. And yes, I have seen one or two accidents happen. Not here, but yes, accidents have happened where somebody has got hit with a weather phenomena or something like that, and
So how did you feel about it?
you feel sad. You always feel sad. But then it's like there was this lovely lady. Her husband, I think, works for Diageo. One of the finest, Krupa Reddy was her name. Fine lady, beautiful, lovely biker. And she turns around and tells me, Devesh, I want to do an all India ride with you because I've seen you ride, and I've not seen anybody who rides as smooth as you. To me, that was the highest compliment ever paid by any biker in all my years of biking. And she turns around and she says, let's go. And we said, okay, we're going to ride from Bangalore all the way to Kashmir because there's a Harley dealer in Kashmir. We're going to go say hi to that guy. And we'll be the first people from anywhere in the south to go there. And she's riding back. She calls me up. I sent her the final, plan. She says, Devesh, looks fine. I'm in, I think she was in Ahmedabad. She says, I've had a problem with my bike. I'm going to Surat to find the part. I think it's there. And I'll connect with you from Surat. This was about 7 in the morning, maybe 8. 2 hours later, I hear that she came under the wheel of a truck because the truck guy just swerved the lane without looking. Whole of Bangalore turned out for her funeral. But it just crushed us. But nobody ever stopped biking because of that. You get back on your bike and you start riding. It's the same thing. You ride a horse, you fall off, you get back on. carry on. Don't let anything scare you off.
If you could create a unique event that combines your love for technology, aviation, and wine, what would it look like?
A private jet with my wife drinking Domaine Romano Conti while going for an anniversary celebration to the headquarters of Harley, that is Milwaukee, and being presented with a limited edition one of a kind bike.
So that's a private event.
No, I said a private jet.
Yes.
Being waited hands on foot with a Michelin 3-star meal.
Nice.
Domaine Romano Conti flying unlimited with my wife. Of course, a Miss Universe serving us at the company, sharing time with us would also be good. Great eye candy. But you asked me now, what was my ultimate fantasy? Yeah.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing. We go to the rapid fire round now.
Okay.
Italy best wines.
Oh, definitely Barolos.
Okay. First thing that comes to your mind when I say Shiraz.
Penfolds.
Burgundy.
Domaine Romano Conti.
Tasting any great wine can be complete.
Ethereal.
Distinctive shop in the world for wines.
Hedonism. Hedonistic wines in London.
I'm going to London. I'm going to try. Wine liberates knots of feelings like.
There is no end to it. It liberates all feelings. But most especially, it liberates the tongue.
In moments of dash and dash, I'm often drawn to wine.
Every time and every time.
Types of beer and preference. Sour, lager, ale, stout, pilsner.
Pilsner is a type of lager.
Yeah. Wheat beer or IPA.
First choice, stout.
Okay.
Hot day, any lager, which could be a pilsner, it could be a dunkel, it could be, but a lager.
Light or dark?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because lagers are typically crisp, light, refreshing.
Okay.
So that's typical summer.
Okay, so stout, lager, then?
Double IPA.
Okay, double IPA. Okay, anything else?
Pretty much the whole thing. I would love like a Grätzer, which is a smoked beer, or a Rauch.
Okay.
And also a Gose, which is a sour beer. So I like to take a typical Gose and sprinkle Kala Namak on it.
Yeah.
So it gives me chaat
Flavor.
that's, chatpata flavor right in the beer.
Favorite beer brand?
All the microbreweries.
Name anyone?
Beer Garden in Kormangla, Beer Library, I told you Aurum,
Yeah.
Windmills, and Longboat, and Arbor Brewing, and Mannheim.
Okay, there are lots.
No, but I would say something. Mannheim and now 46 in Electronic City. Lovely ladies brewing beer there. How can I forget Geist? Especially now coming towards the end of the new year, they make a barrel aged a beer to die for. All three of these breweries, the brewmasters, or rather brew mistresses, all ladies, very talented. Definitely tell people, go there. In fact, Mannheim in Whitefield, 17 beers on tap. I said, even if you do a sampler, you're going to be 1.5 liters down here. So ml into 17,700 liters. You're flat. It's like drinking 6 bottles of beer. So go very slowly.
Here's what you don't want. Overly tannic wines. Second, oaky wines. High alcohol wines or transgressive wines.
Highly tannic and over-oaked.
Why?
Highly tannic, again, suppresses the wine. It means the wine is too young.
Okay.
The winemaker has not done a good job to integrate the tannins. Or the wine has been served too early and the tannins are yet to integrate.
Okay.
Overly oaked wines are definitely an effort by the winemaker to disguise flaws in the wine. It's like that old adage, if I've got poor quality ingredients, let me put extra chili into the food and it will just kill all the taste buds so you can't make out anything.
Which wine is most alcoholic?
I told you, we talked about port. I talked about like the Amarone, the
Yeah.
Maidrima yesterday. We had 16.5% alcohol, but it didn't feel like it.
And that's
But
the highest percentage?
no, port 20 plus.
Okay. And what type of wine sells the most?
In where? In India?
Mm-hmm.
I would probably willing to bet people will go by the label, Sula.
Okay. What's the most expensive wine bottle that you possess?
I don't own a domain Romano Conti, that is for sure, unfortunately. Probably, I've got a collection of some first growths.
Okay.
Uh, Chateau Aubryon, Chateau Mouton Rothschild. I don't think I've got a Lafite, Chateau Margaux.
How expensive are they?
Typically about $1,000.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us.